Welcome back to Language of the Soul, Conversations on Healing and Growth. This is a very special holiday bonus pod for you where we'd like to talk about nice and kind. Martin, what do you mean by nice and kind? What are these differences between nice and kind?
So, in my book, Language of the Soul, A Path of Simplicity, in the chapter on authenticity, I offer a kind of poetic juxtaposition between nice and kind. And I'd like to read it to you now to answer your question, right? Nice and kind. To be nice is to solicit from another their approval. Kindness is both truthful and compassionate. Being nice is transactional. Kindness asks for nothing other than civility. To be nice, one is expected to be pleasant. Kindness carries the hope of clear interaction. Niceness carries the hope of satisfaction. Kindness carries the possibility of authentic connection. To be nice is to agree. To be kind is to allow enough space to disagree. To be nice is to be liked. To be kind is openness to the practice of unconditional love. To be nice is to disregard the truth. To be kind is to express personal truth and mutual respect.
So I really love just the flavors of discernment that you've written there. And I think it's quite important to note on that last one about kindness, your own truth and personal respect. This is something in the time of holidays where many people are gathering together, where that mutual respect really is key to authentic, engaged interactions.
And that authenticity is exactly why I wanted to do this pod. I'm deeply feeling the need for heartfelt, authentic connection with the world around me. Whether it be in the grocery store line, whether it be with my client and students, whether it be with my closest friends, my family, it really doesn't matter so much where people fit into the circle of my life, whether they're in the inner or outer circles, but rather, can I pause a moment, maybe several moments, and offer a response that says, you matter, I matter, we matter enough to give a response. And the moment you give that pause, it may seem odd or strange to some, but others, it brings them to attention. Why is he pausing? It might have just simply been the response to, how's it going? And how's it going deserves a real response. Even if it's, I'm doing really well, thank you. I brought my heart into it. I brought my depths into it, even if it was within a single breath. And it wasn't just a nice response. The other, at the surface, may not even recognize the difference. But if they pause as well, they can feel the difference. Because we all feel it when someone's really there. And if we're going to have a world where connections can be made in authentic or genuine ways, it means we all have to practice that way. It's a choice, and it's not necessarily an easy choice because it requires something of us. In order to recognize that, we need to be rested. We need to be present. We need to be willing to pause. So my homework for you all who are listening, practice the pause. Take that mini breath and then give an answer that speaks both of your depths, but also what's in your heart. It may not actually be in its first expression or its initial expression. It may not be happy. It may not even be joyful. And it's okay to say it's been tough, or it's been this, it's been that, even to the people in our outer circles. The question is, are we sharing out of authenticity, or are we sharing, for instance, solely because we're seeking sympathy, for instance? Not that seeking sympathy is wrong, but to be vulnerable, seeking sympathy only, rather than being vulnerable and being willing to have felt into those feelings. Because often seeking sympathy in a vulnerable moment can in truth be an avoidance of our depths, not an expression of our depths. That's the distinction I often offer to people. Vulnerability needs a depth of examination so that when it's expressed, it doesn't feel like, oh, this person hasn't looked at this, isn't willing to look at this, and simply wants sympathy. Not that it's wrong. I'm not wanting to cast this as wrong. I'm wanting to cast it as, if you experience that in another, if you experience it in yourself, it's a reminder. I need to pause in my life and examine, what's that vulnerability about? How can I practice with it? Because it's really quite okay to say, I've been feeling really anxious lately.
That's the kind of
and I'm
pause
practicing
that brings
with it.
that discernment and level of depth that is truly potent and can really bring about that level of interaction, that quality of interaction that becomes a connection. Because I want to make a distinction between that. I want to discern those two things. The interaction can be superficial, but a connection is giving and receiving. I feel you, I see you. And that's very important right now in this time of year, these times of gatherings, and in all the challenges that we're facing as things ramp up, right? To buy, to consume, to be able to pause with any of that, and especially person to person, heart to heart.
Right. And to shift the conversation in the context that you're speaking of, to shift the conversation of being nice is therefore being transactional. And we could be in the midst of a transaction, and yet we need not be nice. We can be kind, because kind brings two pieces to the table that are not present when we're being nice. And that is compassion and truth. Being nice embodies neither. Being kind embodies both.
I'm reminded of literal transactions that I take when I go to my favorite bookshop here in Richmond and I'm about to purchase a book, but I genuinely really really care about what the owners of the bookshop are feeling and thinking. So when they ask me how I am, I'm ready to listen and I'm ready to receive how they're feeling too. And typically what will happen when I've made the actual transaction of buying the book, we'll stand there and talk for 10 minutes because of that choice that I'm making to genuinely ask the question or to answer their question when they're asking. And so it becomes a real lovely connection there to where an everyday kind of interaction where a transaction may take place can become a rich, soulful exchange.
Mm-hmm. Recently, in my personal life, two people dear to me, one attempted suicide and the other had a stroke, is experiencing aphasia, and there's a real question as to whether or not he will recover to the point where he's able to communicate with the world. And this is a deeply social man and a dear friend, someone who over the last, during 2024, several days a week, we were talking. So the sense of loss of that connection is right here for me, like right here, right in this moment. I feel this sense of loss of, or it's not really loss, it's uncertainty. This other individual who's, my senses has felt deeply alone and frankly needs more of what I'm describing, more authentic connection, more kindness, more of what feels real. We all have people in our lives in varying degrees that are going through something. Sometimes we know of it, oftentimes we don't. I've heard it said that no matter what, if we're out there in the world, always be nice to the people because you don't know what's happening with them. While I don't disagree. I'm not saying, oh, don't, be nasty. I'm saying be real. Bring that depth, because being nice at the surface, that's a low bar. We're in essence saying, don't be an asshole. I'm saying to you, all of us are capable of being a lot more than just not being an asshole. And that we can bring a depth of connection, a depth of being into the world that truly reflects this time, this season, and the intent that comes with it. And while it can feel very transactional, it can also be this deeply beautiful time to connect our hearts to another and know, in whatever way, shape, or form, that person in a momentary or sustained way, in ways that tell us that the deep and meaningful truth that we're all connected.
To
Always have been,
truly
always
be
will be.
nice is to be kind. It's an integration of those. To be nice to yourself, to be nice to someone else, you must take that leap into kindness. Feel that fully, share that fully, be ready to receive that fully in whatever manner another may offer to you. It's beautiful. It's something to really ground all of us in this time.
Yeah.
If you'd like to connect more with Martin, you can do so over at martinperkins.com. Over there, you can check out the paperback and audiobook editions of Language of the Soul, A Path of Simplicity, and as well, Language of the Soul, the year-long course that Martin offers on healing and growth. We've also got some very cool things coming up, including the Winter Solstice celebration on Saturday, December 21st. That's going to be happening at dusk and will include a silent meditation, refreshments, and a bonfire. We also have the next screening in our movie club coming up on January 5th at Simplicity Farm. It's Inside Out 2. You can also watch that on your own time, and if you'd like to then join us for the discussion via Zoom, that'll be happening on Thursday, January 9th. Both of those are starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For either event, you can go sign up for those in the upcoming events tab at martinperkins.com. You can also check out blog posts, information on acupuncture and herbal supplements, all sorts of good stuff.